Hi, I'm Monte, and this is my second video for Strings by Mail exclusively. Today I'd like to talk about muscle confusion. What do I mean by that? There was a fad at some point where they were selling you all kinds of different workout disciplines where muscle confusion was a very big part of it. In other words, the whole idea is to fight against entering a plateau. If you want to get stronger, lose weight, or whatever it is, if you do the same exercises all the time, your body gets used to it and plateaus, and therefore you're not going to be confusing or surprising your body or challenging your body in a meaningful way, and therefore you plateau, and no matter how much you work out, you're not going to get the results that you want. The same goes for technique building. In other words, if you always play the same exercises and nothing else, then your technique is going to plateau, because the body and the muscle memory just gets used to this. And although it's a really important part of learning, there's two phases to this element. One is that you have to get really familiar with something, but then that familiarity needs to be challenged and needs to be confused. In other words, needs to be put over the edge so that your mind and your muscles stay alert to any kind of possible changes throughout the flow of your playing. So, what do I mean by that specifically? Let's say you're doing one particular study, right? Let's say Etude number 1 by Villalobos, which is the one I'd like to talk about today. And by the way, those of you who don't know the piece, I urge you to learn it, or at least to listen to it, or at least learn the first 4 chords thereof. And again, for those of you who don't play or know Etude number 1, I'll give a much simpler alternative in terms of left hand, but the benefits of the right hand will be the same. So what I'm talking about specifically, of course, is the Etude number 1, as we all know and love. And this is, and so on. This is the classic and the typical, the original arpeggio combination, which is fabulous and really, really good for you. I do it every morning. And that is one way to, of course, that is the original way of getting the benefit from this etude. What I want to discuss today is how to take this etude and transform it into, use it as a platform. And I hope Villalobos is not turning over in his grave, but if anything, it's a big compliment to him, because this chord progression is so great because it covers all 6 strings all the time. And so therefore it gives a certain consistency in the platform of utilizing different mechanisms within this particular progression. And that's what's great about it. So the way I like to study this or work out with this etude is, after I've done the normal way, the typical way, is to use it with different arpeggio variations. And I'll show some variations a little further on in the video, but first I actually want to address the issue of the day, which is alternating between regular free stroke arpeggios and rest stroke arpeggios. And you might be thinking, what? Rest stroke arpeggios, what the hell is that? And of course it's a very uncomfortable mechanism, and it's something that very few people use. Flamencos use it quite a bit. I personally don't use it in live situations, but I certainly use it as an exercise, and you'll see it's a fantastic exercise, and it really improves your scales, especially because it evens out and balances out the muscles and the feel and the strength and the agility in your right hand. So what are we talking about? Here we go. The first is forward arpeggio without the thumb, free stroke. Now, let me do this again, just in case we're confused here. You put your fingers A here at the bottom, and you just do forward arpeggios without any thumb. I, M, A, I, M, A, etc. And backwards. A, M, I, A, M, I, A, M, I. Okay? That's the first chord in E minor, which of course is the beginning of the etude. Then the second chord, which is this chord, it's like an A minor 6. We do it like this. So you'll see the switch around that happens. So I'm going to go from back here. So let's do the whole thing. Now notice the switch. I'm doing breaststroke arpeggio. And then back to free stroke. Stroke. And free stroke. And rest stroke. And so on. So I just did it nice and slow, and you should as well start slow until you kind of, this doesn't have to go crazy fast, but this is a good pace. So on. So, a couple of things to consider when you're doing this. One of the most important and first things you should do as you practice this arpeggio is plant. Plant every single finger, every single note. Find the exact crossroads of where the tip of the nail, right underneath the nail, right between the flesh and the nail, and the string, those 3 points need to converge into one dot. So visualize that. In other words, don't plant your finger too deep into the flesh of your fingers, into your pads, finger pads, but rather right underneath. Put them right underneath the fingernail. Of course, you're touching some flesh because the nail is connected to the flesh, but what makes the sound is the nail, 100%. For the sake of accuracy, tone quality, dynamic control, overall control, everything, the first layer of touch and technique has to be planting. And you have to go as slow as your nervous system tells you to. In other words, every time you touch a string, but through the sensibility of your fingertips, it sends a message to the brain and says, I got it. And then when you consciously know that you have it, then and only then do you pull. Rather than just sort of it's very easy to fall into a rut of just unconscious playing. But rather you want to be focused and you want to really get the right feedback from what you're doing and respond in accordance to that. So that would be the first way to develop some more aggressive skills in terms of tone production and control in the right hand, is planting. And of course, when we get to the part where you have to do rest stroke arpeggio, then by default you're obligated to plant and to really feel the tension of the string, the feeling of the string. You just have to, otherwise you just won't even be able to control the string. So what's great about the rest stroke arpeggio, that even if you don't do it as a real life thing, just as an exercise, it's extremely beneficial. Now, to those of you who don't know the Villa-Lobos prelude, or don't read music as quickly or as easily as some of us, a very simple alternative, of course, again, it's about the right hand here. You could just take E and F. So you start with E, doing it as a free stroke. And then put F, rest stroke. And back to E, free stroke. So you just go back and forth like that, which is very simple, and you still get the same benefits in the right hand. So, I hope you've enjoyed it. Practice slow and practice smart. Take care.